Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs. Welcome to the Gundam Explained Show Live. I said that so fast, it sounded like I said gum show or gum shoe. No, but hey, I'm your host, Adam Blue, and joining me, like always, is Steven of Midnight Hatter. What's up, man?
Not a lot. Looking forward to tonight, talking some
Yeah,
more Gundam stuff. I think
yeah,
that there's a lot. I say this in a bad way, but almost sardonic, is it's like, there's a lot for us to complain about.
yeah, and it happens, but it's like we're almost doing it in a way that is for the best of Gundam. We're putting that information out there.
Yeah.
But also there's some cool things to talk about, like for instance, the sponsor of the show, Art Rovo Gundam. Check the link in the description. Um, uh, Again, you buy 2 items, you get free shipping. I've been taking advantage of that, and like for instance, this weekend I showed it off on the stream, but I got the Master Grade GM, just a classic one. I've always needed it, and I got the fine tip, I forget what it's called, metallic markers.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
so, if you guys didn't catch the stream where I was detailing the Zaku 2 provided by Zeeg New York, another sponsor of the show, which I think I have I thought I had an image here. Let's see. No, that's not it.
It's
I'll
just
have
gonna
to
be
get
all
that up.
banners by the end of this.
I
And
know, right? I have to get them all set up. But no, I was using the markers and I was like detailing it. It was so good. And I was like, wow, that turned out great. So that video is up if you guys haven't seen it. But actually, before I start plugging all that stuff, um, let's turn that off. No, for today's show, yeah, something I'm going to complain about, but I think it's a good little criticism. But also, want to show off a badass paint job for a certain Gunpla that I built just recently. But this paint job, I was like, dang, that's pretty good.
yeah.
And then, yeah, I'm going to show off some other stuff. And that's the thing. Like, I almost feel bad. Like, gluttony, one of the sins or whatever. I feel like it's funny, this past week I've gotten a lot of stuff. I'm very thankful for it, but I also feel bad. But I want to share with everyone. And it's a lot of it is things that people have been kind enough to provide for me. And really in turn, I'm making content to show off some things. So yeah, I think that'll be fun. But yeah, Steven, your show yesterday was cool. If you guys didn't check it out, because we actually went over all the Gundam Build World Cup winners from the Richmond
Yeah,
center
yeah,
location.
so, like,
Yeah.
Pixelly and two of the other local builders there, so that's it's been cool the last several weeks, all over on my show, we've been talking about the Gundam Builder World Cup, because, obviously, it's Coop from the Undergated podcast,
Yeah.
took home his, local win. Gunpla Luke over in Oklahoma took
Yeah.
home a local, and it's funny because I swear that Hobbytown must be listening to us because I don't know if you saw that, like, Bandai Hobby US over on Instagram actually made a post recognizing all of the, local winners so far
Wow.
in the GBWC. So it's like because you and I were just talking about it last night, we were
Yeah.
like, "Man, I wish that there was, like, a consolidated list of, like, oh, here are all the local winners," and boom, they've got a picture
Yeah.
of everybody's builds from
But
across the country.
they must be watching your show anyway, because it's cool how we had, or you had, guests on your show that directly related to all that stuff, and it's really cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you guys haven't checked out Midnight Hatters channel, do so. It's like this show is like the part two of our weekly Gundam
Yeah.
discussion. So yeah,
It's
make
always
sure
fun.
you're
We tend to tie things together really nicely,
yeah.
especially like you said with regards to one of these builds that we're gonna take a look at here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, one thing I want to talk about real quick is I've got some new merch up, and I'm actually wearing one of the shirts. It's embroidered Gundam Explain logo. It's in there. There's also this one, that shirt with that on there, and then this I thought was pretty cool. Just a kind of a basic but interesting little design.
I
You know,
love the subtlety of like the white on white with
yeah.
just the shadow to
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought it was just a neat way to kind of be a little more interesting, creative. So it's not like, because sometimes I feel like a shirt that just says Gundam Explained, like,
it's like a
what's the point?
billboard for what? I don't
Yeah.
know.
So it's like I thought it would be cool. Yeah, just make like a cool design, but also having the option to have that, especially like if there's a meetup, hopefully in the future there's gonna be a lot more of those, or like wearing it like when I go to conventions and all that. But
He
also I
says
thought this was
physically.
cool. It looks like a uniform almost that I'm wearing. I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
cool. There's
When you
other
open up the Gundam Explained shop and, like, we all have to wear blue shirts with our embroidered, name tags.
no, no, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna try to come up with some other designs later, but I'm using Fourth Wall, which is this. I think a lot of big creators use it, and I heard a lot of good things. I was doing research, so I checked that out. But the other thing, okay, here's something interesting. I went to Hobby Lobby to get myself some matte top coat, and I found this, which
Okay.
it's hard to see, but it's a lenticular, sort of 3D
Very
thing,
cool.
and it was only 7.99. And normally I wouldn't hang up something like this, but one, it was cheap, and two, I feel like in 2024, finding some wall art that's of like the OG stuff with more modern designs, like even the white base is down here. Like to me, that's cool. You would think it would be Wing or the Freedom, but the fact that it was this classic stuff, I was like, you know what, gotta get it. You know.
I love it. And honestly, the lenticular thing is something that's kind of fallen out of favor. Like, you don't see it very often.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I know. It's really cool, but yeah, it's almost like a kid thing because you're amazed when you're a kid, but if it's done right, the artwork does look cool. But
yeah.
real quick, I have to say what's up to everyone. We got Spaded One, Ultronomus, Robert Westfall, Ace Cool 99 or Cole, sorry. Zionic Shadow in the house, another sponsor of us here. Let's see, Jim Kell X, the Goose. The Goose is in the chat. So good to see you, Goose.
Hey,
Um, and then also, what are some other things real quick? Again, this is that gluttony I was talking about, but I got one of these.
I can't believe you.
It looked
You
kind of
you've got
small,
a pop.
but it's actually a big one. It actually looks small in the video, but it's like a big
Okay.
one, and that's why I got it. I was like, oh, okay, it's actually big. That's kind of neat. Um, and then something else. Now, a lot of this stuff I'm showing off, I actually did live streams through last weekend. So if you guys should check out the live streams to get more information. But if you're part of Midnight Hatter's Patreon, there's some awesome stuff that you can get,
Oh,
like STL files to print something like this, which I love that I have this. I can't wait. I'm going to be doing a video where I'm going to paint this panel line, decal, top coat. Like, I can't wait to do the full treatment on this and have it with the rest of my display.
dude, I'm
Along with,
so excited to see what you do with those because, like, it's one of those things. I've been making these STLs for a long time, right?
yeah.
Like every month we do something different, and it's rare that I get to see somebody, do something with one of the prints. And so I'm like,
Oh, true. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I can't wait. And then, yeah, you'd have some photos maybe to show off, to people that are interested in seeing what they could possibly do. Because that's kind of the fun I've gotten out of Gunpla. Like, sure, there's building, which we talk about. Sometimes we complain about the building, but the detailing, it's almost like 3D drawing because I love to draw and do detail. And it's like, so here's another thing I got. I ordered from Hobby Genki. It's the Gundam Universe Gundam EX or Gundam X. What are people saying? Gundam EX?
I've always said EX, but I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe it is just Gundam X.
yeah. We'll find out, I
But
guess, once
Garrett
we're on
Rand
here.
has something to say about that.
Who?
Garrett Rand from Gundam X.
Oh, that's right, Gary. Okay, yeah, there we go. Wow, that's a good callback. I need to
Deep
finish
cut.
that. I'm on like episode 40, and it's like right at the end. I just need to finish it. But anyway, as cool as this is, it doesn't come with the shoulder-mounted Gatling gun. Makes no
What a
sense.
weird.
Yeah, out of everything they could omit, like, and this doesn't fold down, but I mean, you can't ask for everything. But then also, thanks to Sieg New York, I have built the high grade version, which I will do a live stream sponsored by Sieg New York, where I'm actually going to go through and detail it.
I was
The
gonna
most
say
fun
same
part.
same process that you did
Yeah.
for the Zaku. I'm still
It
trying to pick a paint scheme for the Zaku and the Gundam EX.
well, actually, maybe that's the next topic. We'll show that. And right before I get to that, I want to ask the chat and you something. So again, I was watching Requiem for Vengeance again with my wife. We finished it last night, and at first she didn't really care, but I think it kind of grew on her. She actually liked it and liked the ending. Okay.
There you
Um,
go. Suck it,
but
nerds.
yeah. But one thing I noticed when I was watching it fight throughout is that it is glossy. The armor on it is glossy, and it makes me think I might do a gloss top coat instead of the matte. But, I don't know, sometimes the matte I might look for some reference photos of other people's builds to see, like, what I might and I could s do both, you know?
Well, I mean, speaking of Zeke New York, you ought to check out like Dirty Diggler's work where he does the mix of matte and gloss coats. So like I think what would be interesting to do for the Gundam EX would be to do like matte on the internals and then gloss coat on some of the armor plates that you see on the top. And that way you
Yeah.
get like that contrast between shine and
Yeah, because it is built like that. Though there is something I was looking at reference photos of the Gundam EX, and there's actually so many spots on this that are not accurately colored. For as much as they have these
yeah,
individual pieces, there's still a lot like that I would
shame.
have to do. Like on the arm, the forearm here, it has the little gray I guess screw or what bolt, whatever it would be for the hinge,
Yeah,
but the area surrounding it is gray, just not on the model kit. And then on
interesting.
the legs, on the thighs, the front part, there's a lighter armor part in the middle, but around that there's a light blue or maybe a blue gray.
Interesting.
Yeah, so if I really wanted to be accurate, which I'm going to try to be, there's a lot more detailing that would have to happen for this. So
Interesting.
Goose is saying 7-Eleven colors. Maybe
Can't
that's
go
just
wrong
what
with
I
it.
do.
Yeah. Might as well. So, actually,
Yeah,
going back to the Gundam, from the Gundam Universe line, the Gundam
yeah.
EX, one of the things that, Coop brought up to me from Undergated, and, they've talked about this on the Undergated podcast in the past, is, like, do you think that it would behoove the Gundam Universe line to have, like, the included parts to, like, have a Build-A-Figure?
Yes, I would love that. In
'Cause, like,
fact,
back in the day, in the Mobile Suit in Action, remember the only way you could get a green Zaku to was by collecting the set, and then you would assemble one Zaku from
I didn't know that because I never collected those. But,
yeah.
they came out with that Gundam Infinity line a few years ago,
Mhm.
and it had the smaller ones, and it did that, where the Build-A-Figure, I think, was a green Zaku, and those were cool, but they're just way too simple. But I think Bandai has kinda hit a good balance here of making these cheap figures that are actually good, and I think Coop's right, like, having a Build-A-Figure part would make sense, especially if it's
Psycho
like
Gundam.
yeah, there you go, like something crazy that
'Cause that's what, like, Marvel Legends does, alright? It's
yeah,
like the figure you build is like the Juggernaut or
exactly.
somebody
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because, like, I remember the Sazabi was a separate, more expensive figure you would have to buy, but yeah, having those, especially yeah, with like accessories too. Like, I feel like sometimes they minimize accessories like this, not having the shoulder Gatling for whatever reason. And it's funny, like I'm like, so even Bandai made a post that these are going to start showing up in retail.
Mhm.
And if they're as cheap as we expect, the high grades being in the 20s, I would buy another one to then modify the Gatling to work on here. The thing is, the way this is built, it has a piece underneath this that goes into the backpack. So I'd have to like cut that off,
Oh,
maybe use
yeah.
magnets. But yeah, I, I gotta say, though, like, even though I'm making these tiny little complaints, this design is some of my favorite for me. Like in terms of just a mech, an army machine military mech. Like I mean, I know some people aren't crazy about the design, but like this is the sort of thing where if I saw this and I wasn't into Gundam, it would get me into Gundam. For sure. Yeah.
I
Just
think
with
that's
the
a good way
white
of looking at
gray.
it.
Yeah. But okay. I want to do a quick unboxing. Where did I
Man.
put that?
It's like you've done some unboxings, some reboxings, and now we're gonna do another unboxing.
I know, that's what I was saying, there's too much stuff, but guys, this is very important to me, what is in here, so let me show you. I mean, it's pivotal to building, okay? It's pivotal. So, first of all, the matte top coat, and then I made sure to get another one, and then I also made sure, because you never know, to get another one, and then I, of course, had to get another. But then if I wanted to save on shipping, I got another one,
Well, you
so
just didn't want the first one to get lonely, so you got him a friend and
No, but like between the Sinanju Stein and this recent Zaku, and there was something else I forgot. Oh, the version 2 real grade.
Yeah.
I just know I'm going through it real fast, and I think I finally like got a process down where I feel comfortable. Because one thing, if you guys haven't seen the video I dropped this week with the Zaku 2, like how I built it and all that. So it was raining when I was planning to spray the top coat on it. And I was like, yeah, I've heard not to do it when it's raining, but you know what? I'm pretty lucky. So I sprayed it and then I went back out and it was frosted over. And I'm like, I can't believe I just messed this up. What am I going to do? And so I researched online. One of the things they said, wait a little bit and spray again, like when the conditions are better. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Another one was wash the parts with warm water. And I'm like, man, but I got these stickers and panel lines. Like, what if I mess that
Mm,
up?
yeah.
And then this other one, it was crazy. It was like use cooking oil on it, let it sit, and then wipe off the excess oil. And I'm like, okay, because I've heard this stuff is really bad to ingest, so it must be good for.
For lubricating Gundam parts.
And I kind of wish I did a before and after. Although you can kind of see the back of the shield, I left some of it on because it was frosted over, and it was like a miracle with that cooking oil taking off the
And was it
frost.
like an avocado oil or maybe like a seed oil? Was it canola?
Canola oil.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I was just shocked, and I noticed you need to be liberal with it
Oh,
because if
yeah.
you don't put enough, it doesn't really soak in. But if you put enough, it it allows it to soak in, but then you have to wipe off the excess, and you have to do it in phases, wiping it off because at first you don't really get it off. You'll notice your hands are oily, but
Yeah.
I'm just so happy, and I hope people, I hope this helps you not like be scared to try a top coat, thinking you might mess it up, because then you could use this method to fix it. Because that's my whole thing. When you top coat, if you mess it up, oh, and I've done that before. I've messed
Oh,
up
yeah.
top coats, and it makes you feel bad because then that kit is potentially ruined. Not necessarily.
Only if you leave it in front of the heater.
Yeah, yeah. My GM3, poor GM3. What was that? What it was? Yeah, where I left it in front of the heater, and I was in a meeting, and it just melted. I was like, wow.
Oh,
Uh,
man.
Um, but yeah. So real quick, we're going to jump to what we were talking about with the Zaku 2 because you're trying to think of a paint job.
Yeah.
This, now let me make sure I'm on the right one. Yeah. So this could potentially be it. Sieg New York shared this with me. This is Julionius. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Um, there's so much about this that is sick. First of all, the color scheme being classic Zaku colors, it almost makes the Requiem for Vengeance Zaku look more like a Zaku. And I think you
I
were
would
going to
go
bring up
so
something.
far as to say that a lot of the complaints that people have with the Requiem for Vengeance Zaku is exacerbated by the paint scheme.
Yeah, it must be. And it's weird because I noticed a big, like, almost off-putting difference. But I didn't really mind it, but it really is that. But then it makes me go back and then appreciate then more the Requiem for Vengeance one because it's like, oh, they really stayed true to the look of the Zaku. It's just cool to see the different colors, especially if it's a specialty squadron,
Yeah.
but okay, so there's a bunch of things going on here because we're seeing different tones of the greens, which I think one is awesome. And then, like, for instance, putting the gray or the silver at the bottom of the skirts there to kind of help break it up. But then the amount of and how they did it, the mud, the dirt,
Yeah.
like that really looks like. And then the base, we were talking about bases on your
You gotta be based.
yeah, and then the little dudes on there, which I need to get a bunch more of those. That just adds to, I guess, when I'm setting them up, just
I think
having
that that's gonna be my next, like, big 3D print project is I just wanna
is
make, like, 50 different, like, Xeon and Federation troops in different poses.
yeah, I think like is the reason I like Gundam Mechs mobile suits is the whole it's a giant robot you're piloting like an F-18 or something. And so I forget that aspect of it, of, like, having the pilot and, I guess some model kits that has a pilot, but then I have to paint it, which I can do that. I should. It's just things that small. I'm just, uh, afraid I'm gonna mess up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated by some of the people that do, like, really small scale painting. There's a guy on Instagram, I think it's Jutz a Kid Workshop,
Oh,
Jutz a Kid Workshop, and he only paints 1/1700th scale Gundams.
okay, Jets the Kid. Oh, right here. Oh, I'm following. Huh.
Look at that.
Oh my gosh.
Like, can you imagine trying to pack that much detail? And that's about the size of, like, a 1 to 1/44th scale pilot figure, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the Lego? Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, that's right. I've been following, this account specifically because of that. Oh, they're like SD. Um,
Yeah,
because of that, because it's like when I find these other Gunpla builders that are doing specific things like this, it's like, oh, I need to follow them to is the more I see it, the more I'll be more motivated or inspired to try it out. But
exactly, man, inspiration. I actually offered to send him, some STLs, and he was like, "Oh, man, my backlog is, like,
oh wow. Oh, okay. I
way
mean,
too
yeah,
deep."
he's got everything. Like, the I just saw a crossbone. That looked awesome. Yeah, that's cool stuff. Oh yeah, so one other thing. Oh wait, but about the when you are working on your Zaku 2, what are you thinking you're gonna do with it? Have you thought of any ideas yet?
So, I am thinking I'm going to build it into a diorama of an occupied like, a Xeon occupied city.
Oh, okay, that would be cool. So, like, you would, for instance, have maybe some banners, like, over buildings or something?
Some banners, I'm gonna print out some custom decals that, basically, I'm gonna have, like, some posters and probably even, like, graffiti around the base of, like, some of the buildings.
Oh,
Um
that's a good idea. Because I remember Requiem for Vengeance, there's that time where the camera's panning away from the building and you kinda see, like, the graffiti or whatever about
Yeah,
the
so
invaders.
I wanna try and capture that, I might have to source some, like, good inspiration, like, reference photos of, like, a real dirty, downtown, um,
Or
alleyway.
watch, Red Dawn.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, the '80s movie where what was it? It was Cuba, but it was Soviet Union, but I think it was like Cuba, the '80s one, they
Right.
invaded. And then I think it was the recent one, it was originally China, but then they CGI'd in North Korea because they didn't wanna make China mad. But,
Yeah,
uh, I
as
love
one
that
does.
concept. I remember I was in high school when I first found out about the movie, even though, it had been out for a while. And it was like a guy at school told me about it, and then a bunch of us then planned to go to his house to watch it, and just the idea where they're at school, and then in the background, they're like, "What's going on?" And you see these paratroopers coming down. I mean, and Gundam does a good job evoking that
Oh,
too.
yeah.
It's a fear. It kinda goes back to that Godzilla zombie fear we were talking about, the whole idea of being invaded. Like, now
Mhm.
your world has changed, and you can't do the normal things you were doing.
That's like, did you ever watch that movie Toy Soldiers? N not Small Soldiers.
Uh,
Soldiers is the one about toys that
yeah,
become
no, no, no. Is that with Robin Williams?
what, Toy Soldiers?
Yeah.
No, it's got, Will Wheaton in it and a couple of other, like,
Oh,
really popular I think is Sean Austin in it? One of those, like it was a bunch of those young '80s actors, but it's
oh,
about a
okay.
prep school, like a boys' prep school, and a bunch of, South American terrorists, like freedom fighters, basically take the school under siege because they're trying to ransom the kids off to their parents. They're like, "Oh, well, we're gonna"
Wow.
it's a
That's a I'll have to check it out. That's a good story,
great,
idea.
great movie. I think that, like, something like that set in the Gundam universe, like, can you imagine, like, a bunch of Xeon troops just, like, take over a school, and then, like, the students of the school are trying to, like, fight their way out,
Okay.
and maybe they're not even Federation loyalists, it's just like, we're just
Just
fighting to survive, you know?
exactly. Hold that thought because that's gonna be part of this Fortnite segment and gaming segment I wanna get to
Perfect.
here in a second, 'cause
Look at
that
that.
yeah, that's good that we
Accidental segues.
yeah, accidental segue. But yeah, before we move to that real quick, another shout out to Art Rovo Gundam just because he's now or, the Art Rovo Gundam store is now connected to Walmart, which is pretty interesting
Yeah,
because I guess
congratulations.
yeah, because
That's
you can buy through Walmart, and if you have Walmart Plus, then you get that free shipping, and it's like 2-day shipping,
yeah.
which is pretty amazing. And even if you buy it through Walmart, they're saying you'll still get the sticker, the cards, which is really cool.
And
I
that's a like one of the things that I tell people about is like, there are programs through Target and Walmart where it's fulfilled by the seller, right? So
Mhm.
like, so when you're ordering from Walmart.com and it's fulfilled by Art Rovo, like he's still packing that up and shipping it out of his garage. It's not coming from some like secret Walmart warehouse
Right.
where, you know,
Yeah, and I mean that's cool because I actually use Walmart Plus because when we buy our groceries, we do it through that. And you also get Paramount Plus. I guess it's like the Amazon thing where you get
yeah,
Amazon Prime and you get the shipping. So, it's keeping us on all these subscription services,
gotta
for the
lock it
rest.
down.
But it is actually pretty good because like I could order groceries that will then be delivered within a few hours. And to be honest, it's pretty good. Except, and I wonder if I complained about it on here, when one day they delivered a completely different person's order, and it was like for maybe a party, and it was so much stuff, and we called, and I'm like, "You gotta have them pick this up. What's going on?" Now, luckily, they refunded our order as they should, but like that's a waste
Yeah, I mean that would stink.
because they told us to donate it or keep whatever. So that kind of worked out. We kept some of the stuff. A lot of it was too much excess. So my wife found this local food shelter that she um,
Nice.
donated the rest to. So that was at
Yeah, I
least that
mean,
worked out.
yeah, that's good. I mean,
So actually, that
it's
did work
cool
out.
that they can, that they're able to write that off.
Yeah, I mean, so that's another thing with Walmart Plus. It's pretty good. There are times where I'd get the order and I'm like, this is kind of wrong, but they would just refund it, but you just keep it. And it's like, okay, all right, well, so okay. Something I want to move on to real quick is the Delta Zion or Zayn. I've played the game Silver Phantom. I don't know. So what's cool is this is another Delta because weren't we talking about that on your stream?
Yeah, I've actually got the, Delta Gundam 2 here from Zeeg, New York. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. So, I guess theoretically, the same mobile suit roughly, right? Is this a Delta Plus or a Delta Gundam
See,
that the
that,
Zane is?
that's why I need to do that video to compare the different deltas.
The Delta line, yeah.
So what's cool about this is how it has the silver look to it, and I don't know how they achieve that. If that's like a paint that they're actually putting on top of the plastic.
Yeah,
That
it's probably undergated the way that, like, the Hyakushikis are.
okay.
And
So
I'm gonna call out a little censorship on this one, right? Because, I saw that P Bandai USA, posted this, right? And I was gonna add it to my story on Instagram, and, I was gonna comment on it, "Hey, does anyone else get, like, Power Rangers the movie vibes off of this?" Because it's like
oh
this the reflective silver,
yeah,
but they restricted stories. You can't share their post in your stories.
interesting.
And I was like, "Oh, so, like, you're just gonna shut down any potential
Like yeah,
criticism of your."
yeah, that's interesting. I yeah, hey, Bandai gonna Bandai. We'll probably get some more of that here in a second. Um, so here's the thing. I really like this because I
It's
do like the
awesome.
Delta designs. I do like how it has that silvery look to it where it actually works on here. I am seeing that it's $78, but I wonder if that has to do with the coating. Is because I do know that when Hasbro they had to change the way they painted the C3PO and the dome of the R2D2 because it was
Yeah,
too expensive to afford that type of reflective paint. So I wonder if that's what this is, and that's why it's a P Bandai. It's like it is more expensive. We're not gonna be able to do a retail release.
and they probably had to change it from a standard gate to an undergate.
Oh, okay. So then, yeah, different production manufacturing. And it also has it where the pre-orders close March of next year. So it's almost like it's more like I bet they just made a limited quantity. They have no idea. They're just like, we don't know if people are going to pay 78 or not, so we'll just leave this open.
Yeah,
Um,
typically they only have them open for like 30 days, right?
right.
Something like that?
And usually, yeah, yeah, usually the only time that I think it's rare. I can't even think. Um, you know what? That reminded me of something else I wanted to bring up for this show. So, are you familiar with the fact that there are third-party companies that are pumping out GM Spartan kits?
Yes, I've seen this.
Okay. Like, you know, I
And I
again,
think
I
they're like
don't
super
condone.
cheap too, right? They're like
Yes.
7 to
It's
$14,
yeah,
something like that?
exactly. Like, I think there was one I saw on, so they'll have, and I wonder if I could bring it up, AliExpress GM Spartan, because and it looks sick, like a white dingo version, and, see, this is 17, but if you search around, like this white one, I gotta get this out of the way.
You can probably price it out, yeah.
Yeah, I saw one that it was like $6, but if you wanted it with a box, it was $8. And I was like, um, but these look so sick. So all they're doing is pumping out, which I think people will say is the best, like sort of mold that exists, is the GM Spartan, and just coming out with variants.
I love how they literally even used the same photo as the GM Spartan, but they just, like, photoshopped it.
Colored it. Yeah. So if you were on AliExpress and you just search GM Spartan, um, it's everywhere. And there's different types, different colors. Look, I think this is great because, when we were bringing up pre-orders, GM Spartan was a big one that used to sell out and then it was available. But now,
Yeah.
if you wanted to get it, you would, you could do it this way. And this is kind of telling. This is how much people want this kit and to army build the kit. So amazing. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if I were working for Bandai, that would be like, "Alright, we need we need to mass produce this Big Zam," you know what I'm saying? Like
oh yeah.
oh,
Uh,
and I love that I mean, just seeing it in the different paint schemes of, like, different GMs is pretty awesome.
I know. I know.
Um,
I totally like this a lot.
and, while I don't, like, condone piracy typically well, the
Right.
one thing I will say is you saw that thing going around on Twitter, right, about the third-party Zazabi that was causing, like, skin irritation and
Oh, I
allergic
heard about that.
reactions.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's interesting because I have heard that some bootleg or knockoff or whatever you want to call them, sometimes it's, yeah, the plastic is toxic.
Yeah,
Is it?
so, definitely be wary of that when you're buying third party,
Yeah. Because there's this other thing too, it's called CT Toys, where they're
yeah.
making Mafex figures
Oh,
that
wow.
are just as good, and I watched a review, and it looks exactly the same, and I'm like, "That's pretty amazing," because people want this Wolverine, but it's if you can get it, it's like $150.
Oh, yeah.
So if
It's
someone
insane.
could pay, 21, which I think when it first came out was even cheaper than that. So here's something I did. They had a what are those ground high mobility type Zaku's from
Oh, yeah, the surface type.
Surface Type.
Yeah.
I saw one, I was searching for one to get, and I saw it on sale on AliExpress. I was like, wow, this is cheap. It was like $11. And I'm like, okay, is this really the real thing? But for $11, I'm willing to try.
Give it a chance and see what happens.
Yeah,
Just
because I
give it that
guess
soapy water bath before you start building it, and you should be alright.
okay, so is that a legit tip probably?
I mean,
Because
that's what I've heard on Discord is, like, if you wash the runners before you start messing with them, then you should be okay. I think what you probably would encounter is that if you were to just snap build the kit, you're probably not gonna have any issues, but you have to remember that a lot of the people that are gonna buy these kits are typically gonna customize them, and so,
right.
like, even if you were to buy this, Notfex Wolverine, you probably wouldn't have any issues, but if you're a Gunpla builder, you're gonna be sanding this plastic, you're gonna be melting it using, your plastic cement, you're going to be using panel line fluid, all of these different chemical reactions and mechanical breaking down of the plastic. That's probably what's causing the irritation in people. It's not just handling the raw plastic.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
breaking it down and whatever the cheap ways it was made. That's a good point. So,
yeah.
yeah, because I guess with the Surface Type, I would do what I would do with most of mine, where I don't necessarily melt it or file, which I guess I kind of use my nail. I've noticed lately if I use enough of my nail, it kind of, you know. Um, I got to get better at that. In fact, I even reached out to Luke about that, and I need to get back with him because I wanted to, because he offers those sessions, and I was like, hey, I
Yeah.
should try it out. That is my number one thing I want to easily learn is, sanding, and I know how to do it, but I guess to more make it a regular thing I'm doing, like my panel lining, where I'm not, because I feel like there's ways you could do it where I don't have to have like this whole swath of things. Like I've learned you don't necessarily need to go all out all the time, you know.
No, I mean, there's certain I've been seeing, like, a lot of the ads from, Ray Studio for the files that they make that are, like, narrower,
Oh, I
which is
saw
kinda
that.
cool because, like,
That's a good
you
idea,
know,
actually.
especially, like, for this is one of those, like, glass files, but the width on this and the profile of it is so big that if the panel
Yeah.
or the panel if the nub mark was, like, somewhere that was kind of, like, on an indent or a curve, I wouldn't be able to get in there and properly remove it, but having, like, like a, finer point file would help.
Okay, so then that's probably, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's what would help me feel more comfortable because sometimes it's so big where I'm like, okay, am I going to get the right angle? And then I mess up more of it than I wanted to. And I'm like, I'm just going to. So
Yeah.
I did see that. It almost looks like it's an advertisement, but it's really just one of his videos, right? Where
I
it's,
mean, are any of his videos not
yeah,
advertisements?
okay, yeah, good point. No, that's a pretty good point. Oh, here's from Lucas Garrett. Always wash the runners, and I've
There
heard
you
that
go.
before. Yeah. So okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Um, so real quick, I want to talk about Gundam and Fortnite. And again, I hate to be a hater, I really do, but I'm going to be a little critical. So initially, I had reached out to the company when I found out who it was that was making this. And I said, hey, I would love to collab in some way. They're like, yeah, great. That would be awesome. We'll meet up. And so we had a meeting to talk about everything. They gave me all the information beforehand and they were like, just don't tell anyone. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I guess when it was timed, I was going to release a video. They're like, hey, hold off. Don't do anything yet. I'm like, okay. And then I think they were going to have another meeting with me and then they canceled it. And then I was like, hey, anything going on? They're like, no, just hold off. Well, then one random day, I think it was last Friday, I'm working and then I see someone I used to work alongside with that posted a video of, hey, we had an early look. And I was like, oh, so they got to check it out. It's like, well, since it's out, I'm going to go try it. Now, I've played a lot of Fortnite, but it's just battle royale. I don't
Yeah.
know things outside of that. So my video, and it's pretty cringy. I go to join, yeah, because here's the weird thing about this Gundam Fortnite mode is it's a specific island or map that you have to use a code to then get into. So it's not like you could just be playing it and then or playing Fortnite and then there's Gundams there. It's like it's a very convoluted process. If you know Gundam but don't know Fortnite, you're not really going to know what to do. If you know Fortnite and don't know Gundam, you're not going to care. But since I was excited about this and I saw that people I'd worked with before are posting these videos, I'm like, oh, I got to jump in and make some content. So I did it. It wasn't live, but I just recorded in real time me jumping in. And apparently, I kind of figured it out later on, but at first I didn't realize I had created, or I guess it defaulted on a private room. So when
Okay.
I was like, hey, no one else is joining, is no one playing? It was because I was in a private room. And I think a little later in the video, I'm just thinking to myself, well, at least I get to try the Gundam.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's where the problem is. You don't actually really get to try a Gundam. So it's 20 on 20. And randomly in the map, depending on how many things you capture, someone gets picked to be in sort of a first person view. Yeah, of
Pilot the
being,
Gundam.
yeah. And the camera, there's like 4 spots that you can look at to just fire your gun at. And then you get to watch them battle. So if you're on the ground, so yeah, the next day, me and my son jumped. He wanted to try because he plays a lot of Fortnite.
Yeah.
We tried it. For him, it was like, oh, well, that's cool to see, but he never even went back to it. There was like no reason. And
No.
I'm so I so it's cool to see the Zaku 2 and the Gundam EX battling, and in fact, this developer, North Look World, they do these cool things where they do create, these interesting game types, and that's actually a cool thing on its own.
I was gonna
The
say there's a lot to unpack with that because, like, isn't it weird now that you have publishers/developers that they're not making games, they're literally making games within
Yeah,
existing games, like,
exactly, and they've done a whole lot of stuff that's actually really
that has
cool.
been good, yeah.
And I wouldn't even say that this is bad. Like, in fact, if you don't know Gundam, like, this is a neat thing where you have these giant robots that, so that's the problem. And I think that had to have started at Bandai. It's where they are not really treating Gundam with this regard of its relevancy, and what it's known for. So I would expect more, at least skins in Fortnite for the idea of, hey, we're just as cool as Spider-Man, Marvel, or what are some other Ash? I have the Ash skin. I love that.
Well, and then at least you'd get to use it in other game modes, you wouldn't
And then
just be
people are like,
restricted to just
yeah. So then people are like, oh, what's this? It's like, oh, it's a Gundam. What's a Gundam? It's like, I don't know. It's the skin I got. I looked it up, and there's these shows and movies, but that then doesn't happen. So it's like I'm thinking, what is it Bandai was thinking would happen with this? It's I again, I don't wanna hate on the developers that did this,
no.
but from Bandai, what were they thinking? Because
And Bandai at any point could have said, like, because again, to your point, it's not the developer's fault, they just did what they were gonna do, and then it's like, it's on Bandai to say yes or no, and they were like, "Yeah, that looks great."
yeah, and it's confusing, especially, like, when I was working closely with Bandai, when they would nitpick at things to be like, "No, no, no, we need to show respect for Gundam. Gundam is something important. We can't just throw it into something." And so when I see this, I'm like, "This is exactly what they did." And I guess it's like,
Maybe it's when the right person says, "Let's just throw it into something," then then that
I
works.
know the person in charge, is just like, "Hey guys, do this." And it's like, "Okay." And it's disappointing because then I look at another big franchise I really like, and they call Gundam the Star Wars of Japan. And look at like Star Wars Outlaws that came out this year. I think there's a lot of grifting hate on it that it doesn't deserve. I think it's a great game, but even the Jedi Survivor series is huge. You're treating they're treating the property with the respect it deserves. Like, and I would even say Code Fairy was kind of the last of that. It's just even then they skimped on the budget because it sold so bad that when they ported GBO2 to PC, they didn't even think it was worth porting Code Fairy, so they just made the suits as DLC. That's how bad it did. And again, it's like gaming is the new medium for this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then like GBO2 is an interesting example because I think GBO2 has a killer system. Like it's just great, but not that many people actually play it compared to what they would want. It's just that it has the gotcha element. So
Right.
then they're making money off of that, which actually in its own way is cool. I consider that a niche product like Gundam Breaker 4. Gundam Breaker 4, they have an audience. Like there's people that are going to buy Gundam Breaker because it's Gundam Breaker. They know what they're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
But Bandai Namco also publishes Elden Ring. And it's like, look, there is an opportunity here to take it's still about 50 years of Gundam storytelling, create a unique, even if it's reimagining or not reimagining, but retelling of a Gundam story. And
Yeah.
giving it the controls it needs, because that's the interesting story element in Gundam is when a character is piloting a Gundam for the first time and it's hard to figure it out. If you play a Souls game for the first time, you're trying to figure out the controls. Mastering it is part of that gameplay experience.
I mean, shoot, dying in Bloodborne is the first thing that you have to do.
Yeah, to get yeah. And so I think that is like the most obvious, but the missing part of making a Gundam game is providing what we already see works. People will complain about games being hard, but if they're fair, they work. And I think the Souls games are an example of that, where these are fair. and difficult games.
Yeah.
Um, and so I wanted to go back to what you were bringing up earlier, like with the taking over places, because
Oh, yeah.
when I was thinking of like, well, what would be a good setting to tell a story in an open world style, Gundam game? You and I have talked about this stuff forever,
Yeah.
but something that came to me would be if it maybe take place in a single colony that is at a tug of war between Federation and Xeon, and you choose
Yeah.
which one you want to be. And I like the idea. We see these in games though, but it's like maybe there's a certain sector of buildings that you go and you take over, and then you see the banners come down of Federation or Xeon. I would like, it would be cool too to get out of your suit and walk around, for some maybe like the character story parts. Um,
Kinda like
Also,
if you remember, like, the Infamous games where it was like,
oh yeah,
you
you
know,
could
you would
choose
take over different city blocks, and then, like, the people in that area would either, like, help you or fight against you depending on whether you're good or evil,
right.
and yeah.
Yeah, and remind me of the Just Cause games too, because
Yeah,
that's like you're liberating,
perfect example, yeah.
and
Just
you
Cause
have like,
awesome.
yeah, I know. I think it was like the third or fourth one they introduced a mech that you can
Yeah,
use, and then that game had flying around, and so it's just to me it's bizarre with how they want to treat the brand, how they say they want to treat the brand of Gundam, especially in video games, and they have yet to really create that. Because I think another thing that I, I think gamers would love is when they're like going to get a mech game, but it's like, you see how much people like Armored Core 6,
yeah,
which I would argue, as much as it's about mechs, the gameplay itself is not mech gameplay.
yeah, it's not like a simulator.
Right. And
Yeah,
I think so. I was playing, and I've been wanting to talk to you about this. I was playing the Godzilla PS3 game. Um,
nice.
and it's interesting because even though you control Godzilla, the game is from the point of view of the humans. So you're controlling Godzilla, and then this lady will come over on the intercom, being like, "Okay, Godzilla's here," and it's like, "Oh, here's a data point." Like if you walk in a certain area, she's like, "Hey, here's the data point. Let's capture some data." So you press a button, and it changes the camera to be cinematic, and you're still attacking, but you're letting it build up so you captured that spot. Um, and it's supposed to get them more data, but it's really showing you do attacks. But what's cool about it is you move very slow, and you use the left and right bumper to turn. And
Oh,
so
wow.
it's like
It's very deliberate.
what they did with the controls is make it feel like you're this giant hulking beast. And what's also cool about it is as you do each level, you can choose different paths. And um when you beat it, you can then choose to upgrade Godzilla, and then you start again. It's called Go Ashore. And then you choose your path. It's almost like a roguelike.
That's kinda cool.
So yeah, every time you go through it, you choose the different paths, so then you can get the different data points on each level, fight the different kaiju, and that's what made me think about the Gundam game, because the Godzilla game, and what's interesting is how much it goes for on the secondary market. I mean, that's how much people like it, and it's out of print, but
Yeah.
the game makes you feel like you're part of Godzilla. And that's what's missing with the Gundam games.
Oh,
Sure,
yeah.
Gundam Breaker 4, that I think it's its own niche thing. It's for
But
people that like Gunpla.
and it is a niche of a niche because
Yeah.
what you're gonna find is that, if you have an umbrella of Gundam fans, and then not all Gundam fans are Gunpla fans, and
Right.
then not all Gunpla fans are going to buy Gundam Breaker 4, and
Yeah.
then nobody who plays Gundam Breaker 4 is not a Gundam fan, and nobody
Right.
who plays Gundam Breaker 4 doesn't collect Gunpla, so you know that that's the smallest possible target
Yeah.
market for your game.
Yeah. And so it's interesting that with the reverence, I feel like they assume Gundam has, they have not bothered with this sort of more prestige, world building sort of immersive Gundam game where you're immersed in the story and you feel like you're piloting a mech. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be full on simulator,
No, no,
but I think
GBO2 is a perfect balance of that.
exactly,
Like, you already
exactly.
kind of have the half mech simulator gameplay of GBO2. If you were to take, like, Helldivers on the ground and then add in
Oh,
GBO2 mech controls, you have the perfect
dude,
Gundam game, at
dude,
least
you are so right.
gameplay-wise.
Yeah, dude, you are so right because that's another thing Helldivers 2 does well is everything about it is the world building. You're on the ship, you get into the pods that get shot down, and then you land, and then you call in like, everything you're doing in the game is a world building thing, whereas, Gundam Breaker 4 is, uh, you just kinda and now they have it where the level again, I don't wanna hate on it because I feel like it's doing its own thing,
Mhm.
but you're just mashing buttons to collect parts and then build. I would almost rather them come out with something where it's like, here's a Gunpla simulator where it's you don't necessarily have to go and
Yeah,
fight.
why even have the fighting
Yeah,
component? Because
exactly.
yeah.
I I think it would be cool if they had and it was just it was like an online thing where you could be in a lobby with tons of people, show off your Gunpla, go into, like, maybe rooms with other people, and you can still walk around with it, but sometimes having to, like, play through levels to unlock stuff, it's like,
It's just grinding for grinding's sake.
yeah,
And you brought up a really good point with things like Jedi Survivor and Outlaws is those are games that don't rely on the core story of Star Wars. They're Star Wars side stories, right? But because of the sort of semi-open world, like it's a linear story, but it is an open world to
right,
explore. You get to kind of um get some of that world building that people love. Like that's what is going to make people fall in love with Gundam as a franchise, even if they're not a current Gundam fan. And what's interesting is you can go back to the origin of Gundam the TV show, and remember it was, Tomino himself saying that like, "Oh, well, female fans of Gundam, like, they didn't care about the mech battles, they cared about the family drama that was going on board White Base."
yeah,
And it was like, exactly, you have the bones of something great here, like this great story, this great world that's built, but GBO2 and Gundam Breaker 4, neither of them
do that.
explore that world or let the player explore that world. And to your point, video games are such a powerful medium for letting people kind of explore a setting.
Yeah,
You know, you don't have to be shown everything. It's just like here it is. We present it to you. You kind of feel your way around and figure it out yourself. And I think people like that. I mean, especially kids, like the generation after you and I, they
yeah,
love to make their own fun. So
yeah,
why take that away from them?
yeah, exactly. I think, I think what would, yeah, it would really help if they were to really look at what and it's funny because it's not like Bandai Namco makes Elden Ring.
No.
They're just publishing it. And it's like they know that's a moneymaker. Why don't they just do that in-house where it's like, hey, we know the formula that can work, and hey, let's do it. Let's use Unreal Engine 5, make the graphics really good, and make it where you feel like you're piloting a mobile suit, but then you can get out, you can customize it, and then do the open world things where you capture points and, upgrade your suit. Like it feels like it's so obvious. And I wonder why they don't do it because I can even think of other games that aren't like amazing, but they're at least like I was showing you that Outcast game. I was streaming it that
Yeah.
one time. Awesome, beautiful open world game, low budget, but
Mhm.
the world feels great. It does things with controls. Like there's something when you were watching me playing it, there's like your jetpack and then you can glide, but there's also instead of calling like a horse or something, you can actually do this horizontal jetpacking across the ground. So
That's
they add that the fun exploration factor,
and
so
again, you already have that in GBO2 in the case of, like, the little jet packs, the little
yeah,
vernier packs that pilots
you
can
can
wear,
activate. Yep.
that would allow you to traverse and I always say this is, like, when it comes to third person action video games is that world traversal is such a powerful part of what makes a game fun, for Breath of the
Yeah.
Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it's the paraglider and the free climbing.
Yeah, it that's a good point because I think a lot of times games will sometimes try to be restrictive on purpose to kind of make you have to think about things, but there is something to be said about making certain gameplay elements easy or fluid or I'm playing Star Wars Outlaws again because they had the new update that came out
Oh,
and
right,
boy,
yeah.
it really makes the game feel it's small details but they add up. Just the movement, they made it where there's less. collision detection when you're riding a speeder, so I can, like, just kinda quickly zoom around without, like, clipping a corner and going flying all the time, like that. And it's interesting because what I would say is, it's not like it made the game better, it made the game easier.
Mhm.
And because sometimes easier isn't always better, you know? Like, for instance, the stealth sections, I did my first stealth section since they've changed it, and yeah, if they see you, you can then just fight them. You don't get caught and then have to start over.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
and I mean, that kinda goes to what we were talking about with, like, MGS5, where you have options for how you wanna engage each scenario. Like, you can go in and gun everybody down. It's a little more difficult, but, like, I think
Oh,
that,
yeah.
when you get too restrictive about, like, "Okay, we don't want players to play in this particular way, so we're just gonna say, 'No, you can't do it.'" Whereas a game like MGS5 does this thing where it's like, if you approach it stealthily, it might be easier for you, but if stealth goes out the window, it's a little harder, but you can, there's
Yeah.
trade-offs.
Yeah, you were watching me play that one time, and I, like, died, and I was like, "Oh, I'll do something different." I just, like, went straight to the guy just to
Which is hilarious because it's like, when I do stuff, I'm super cautious and I'm like, "Okay, so when I did that mission, it took me like 40 minutes because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna choke out each individual soldier and like hide the bodies."
but that's
Adam just
cool.
goes in and is just like,
Yeah, I no, but it's cool. I think that's what's cool about those types of games. It gives you that sort of choosing your own adventure style thing,
yeah, player agency is
and I
big.
think, yeah, with Metal Gear Solid 5, you just made me think, like, what if you were a special what Echo was, and you had to, like, go in and find out about maybe some new Xeon technology, but along the way, there are sequences where then you're in mobile suits, but then you're still on the ground. I mean, I feel like there's so much more and then here's another side of that. So there's, the Gundam fighting games,
Yeah,
but they haven't had a new one come out since, and it wasn't too long ago that one on the PS4 came out. And I think that also is a niche that is okay and that works. Like, there's not really another fighting game that feels like that, and it is pretty neat.
yeah,
But they should also do something like, those survivor likes have been really popular lately, like Vampire Survivors. It's like
yeah,
that, I think, is a good example where, yeah, make a Gundam Survivors. Like, because that's just a way where it's a genre that's fun, and you could go in there and be like, okay, well, what are some unique upgrades that you would choose from if this was a Gundam themed game? Like, because I think sometimes you can't just make a game for the sake of it, like a hero shooter. Obviously, it didn't work, but I do think you can take maybe you find something that might work, and I
yeah.
think,
If
and
there's
I
a
think,
winning formula, and I think that
yeah,
that's what they did with Dynasty Warriors Gundam, right? Is like,
yeah, that's a good example. Which, if they announced a new one of those coming out, that would be cool. Although I would still be like, well, when is the Prestige Gundam game coming? But have you seen the videos and screenshots of the new Dynasty Warriors?
no, I haven't.
Okay.
What are they up to now? Like 12?
I know, but the graphics are really good. It's like, I feel like when those games always came out, they were always like behind a little bit.
Yeah, they did
But
feel like it was like you would have whatever the newest Final Fantasy was, and then the newest Dynasty Warriors would be like
oh yeah.
step below that.
And this one actually looks super modern, and so that makes me think that would be cool if then they leverage that engine, which is probably Unreal Engine 5, for the new Gundam Dynasty Warriors. Because yeah, that and the reason I like the Gundam Dynasty Warriors is because they're retelling the stories, but then
They
also
do.
giving little options. I love the lore based stuff that goes on in that.
And I mean, that's kinda what you got from, Gundam Battle Alliance, right? It's just it was SD, and that was you know
No, that is I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like that was a great combat system, but
it was a lot of fun.
just fighting with these SD things, it almost took you out because then it was like it looked like a cutesy platformer, but you were trying to do like combat. I feel like I feel bad hating on the game because actually I loved it. I put so much time into it, got all the DLC, but they made a mistake making it SD. Like, and I think Goose brought this up. It has something to do with licensing when it comes to all the different universes together. So,
Yeah, it's possible because I know that, like, for instance, MS Saga on the PS2
mhm.
was all SD, and it was like
Ah,
It's the not Gundam RPG.
right. Which, I need, and even Ultronymous was bringing up games, and it's like there's so many Gundam games I still need to play that I will be covering on the channel.
Absolutely.
And also there was that recent news about the Seed game that's being re-released. So
Mhm.
that's exciting. Maybe they saw how popular, Seed Freedom did. They're like, hey, we need a Seed game. So hopefully that does it. But rant over. I had to
Feel
get that
good
out.
getting that off your chest.
Yeah, I had to get it out because guys, I love games. I love Gundam. And so there's this hole in my heart of a good Gundam game. And I'm not saying the games that are out are bad. I'm just saying the expectation of a Star Wars of Japan does not exist in the gaming world.
No, the itch remains unscratched.
Yeah. So maybe it's us that has to fix it.
If someone's
Let's
gotta
do it.
do it.
Yeah, let's try to get some money together and fund no. I mean, yes, but it's not gonna
Yeah,
happen.
yes, but also
No. Well, anyway, that was a fun talk. Yeah, good show today. Again, thanks to did I? Yeah, Art Rovo Gundam for sponsoring this. Also, Zieg New York for sponsoring as well. Giving me this model kit. Stay tuned for this weekend where I'm going to go through and detail it live. So that will be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Um,
likewise. I think I better unbox this guy.
oh yeah, because that's a good one. That's yeah. And hey, again, Steven, let me know. I know our schedules sometimes conflict, but if we can somehow sync up and do a
Power
stream,
stream.
that'd probably be pretty fun. Yeah. Um, Yeah, I think that's all. I think I wore myself out with all that talking. It's gaming and Gundam. I love it. So, all thanks. Have a good weekend, and yeah, we'll see y'all later. Peace out.
See ya.